Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again, here with part 4 of my reaction to Mr. Brad Geary, former Navy SEAL commander. He's on the Resilience Show, talking about the truth about buds and moral courage. So, let's jump back in.
So the war fighters of today just are running circles around dudes like me from 20-something years ago, for sure.
What was the challenges of, I think one of your biggest challenges of being command of certifying or training and certifying, young Navy Navy SEALs?
There's a bunch. That was the hardest tour of my life, for sure. It's also the most rewarding tour of my career.
Tremendous amount of political pressure.
Oh yeah. Pressure everywhere.
Yeah.
And everyone's interested in what's going on at Buds. So everyone's always asking questions. Everyone's scrutinizing. Everyone's criticizing. So really, really difficult, but really rewarding. I've said it to dudes, I will go back and do it again in a heartbeat. I loved that experience there. I tell all the guys who are competing for the next CO job there, hey, it's worth it. It's worth it. Even knowing where it took me in my unique case, I would still go back and do it again. Incredible experience. So there's a couple things that were the most difficult for me, and it's different for everybody. But one was having to drop candidates, who weren't measuring up. That was always a hard choice for me because it's everything they wanted. It's everything they thought they were destined to be. Mm-hmm. That was really hard for me to break their hearts there.
Man, that's interesting to hear. That was a hard decision for him. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been in that position. I look at it from a very small, through a very small aperture, through a very small window, from my perspective as an operator, and looking at individuals in terms of, would I want to go and serve with them? Would I want to be next to them? Would I want to have them next to me if we were deployed on operations? And if I, right or wrong, if I don't feel like that person is somebody that I'd want to have next to me, then I say this flippantly because I've never been in this position, then I feel like it would be an easy decision, regardless of whether they've said this is all I've ever wanted to do, etc., blah, blah, blah. Because I've met a number of people that seem to speak like that. And one thing that I'll mention is that something that just comes to mind now. Even the guys that I went through with in NZ and Australia, well, actually, there's probably one guy in NZ that I remember that spoke like this, saying that this is all he's ever wanted to do, wanted to work with the best and serve with the best, and that's cool. And he did eventually get there, from what I understand. I'd already left, but he didn't get through that particular selection. But where was I going with it? Is that, for the most part, apart from that one person that I recall in NZ, everybody else in NZ that I was with, and those that I was with in Australia, I didn't hear any of them. None of us spoke about this is all I've ever wanted to do. This is it. Even though that was how I felt, and even though that may have been how they felt, I can't recall any one of them, and myself included, in our conversations during selection or during cycle, or even once we got in, saying things like that. I don't know if that means anything, but it's just interesting that thought comes to mind while this guy, Brad Geary, former commanding officer, found it hard to, from what he's saying, to drop guys because of that thought, or him knowing that this is everything that they've wanted to do.
You're not talking about kids. You're not talking about the ones that quit. You're talking about the ones
that I had to drop for performance or character or something like that. It was always really hard because I used to say I'm an eternal optimist. I'm now more of a optimistic realist, I think. But I always hoped, like, we can get him there, like we can train him enough, or I can develop his character, not me. That's hubris, but we can. And it just sometimes it's just like, no, dude, some people are just who they are, and they're either not teachable, not trainable, or they don't want to evolve with their characters. So I had to drop them. But it always broke my heart. I used to say I'm the killer of dreams, and that's hard to come home to at the end of the day. My sister-in-law corrected me, which helped. She put it in perspective. She said, no, you're the killer of self-delusion, and you're protecting the community.
That's a great comment, and nice of her to give him that guidance. Yeah, you're the killer of delusion. Like, there are some people out there that it's like anybody can apply, right, for an SF selection. Whether or not you get on after they do their checks and balances is up to those units. But even if you get on, there's so much more to it than just being able to physically pass the elements of a selection course to get into a unit. And like they said, actually, I'll save this other part for a Q&A, but I'll touch on it here anyway while I'm doing this, while it's fresh in my head. I've been asked a number of times, and more so recently as well, if I know what the directing staff said about me in the New Zealand selection and or the Australian one. You get a bit of a brief summary. You don't get a lot of detail, whether you pass or whether you fail. Well, actually, I haven't failed, so I don't know what that briefing or debrief would be like, but I would imagine that they would give them some sort of guidance to help them maybe get a better understanding of where and why they may have been deemed not suitable. So say they pass selection but deemed not suitable to go onto the cycle. I would assume that they'd be given a little bit more of a heads up, so that maybe it is something that they could go away, work on, develop and improve on them by themselves, and then come back and then, apply for the next one, whatever. But in that, no, I've never been given, like I can get my records from the military. I can request those, but my understanding, even if I requested for my notes from my SAS selection course in New Zealand or SAS selection in Australia, that's if they still keep them. From what I understand, they still keep them and they go into some type of archive, which is cool and which makes sense. But I personally, from what I understand, wouldn't receive them because it's still sensitive information, and there's stuff in there. I think part of it to protect the unit, the integrity of the unit, so that people can't try to game the system. That's my understanding of it anyway. But it's not something that's even crossed my mind. Actually, no, it has crossed my mind because I would be curious to know what the staff may have said about me in NZ, especially as a younger person on my selection there at 20. And I would love to know what was being said about me as I hadn't been kicked off the cycle and progressing through each course. I'd love to know. But at the end of the day, for me, and I think for anybody that is progressing, at the end of the day, for me, it's not really a big deal either because I know enough. And what I mean by that is I didn't get kicked off. I kept progressing, passing the course, progressing to the next one, passing that course, progressing on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So for me, that's enough. Like whatever was said in the notes or in the records that they keep, in the reports, which they're no doubt doing on each candidate as they go, is neither here nor there. So that's how I feel about it. But I'll address that in a Q&A, maybe this Friday, Frontline Friday, because as I mentioned, that question's come up a few times, and I know I haven't really answered that question. But anyway.
Protecting the brand when you tell those people, hey, I'm sorry, this just isn't for you. So that was really hard one.
Because not everybody can be a Navy SEAL.
No,
we always tell kids, you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up.
You can't.
I can't be an NBA player. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That was hard. The other thing that was hard, it was two other things. One, from a friendship perspective, it was always tough when a legacy candidate would come through. So the son of a father who was a SEAL, especially from my generation, and I knew the dudes. And so they always statistically do better. You have a higher rate of success for a legacy kid, ideally, because he's been trained by his dad and he knows what he's getting into. Yeah. But it's still 50-50, and so there's some that don't make it. That was heartbreaking because 9 times out of 10, the dudes that don't make it who are a legacy kid, their dad would blame me. And the phone calls I would get, the vitriol, the hate spewed at me from people that I once considered really, really close friends, teammates, even bosses and mentors, was really hard, and disappointing. You've talked a lot on this show about how we turn these things into idols, what we wear on our chest. It's not what you wear on your chest that makes the man or the woman. And yet seeing some of these dads who I respected as warfighters wrap their identity into their son's accomplishment or failure at Buds, or not even failure, choice. Some of these guys are like, hey, it turns out this isn't for me. I'm going to quit. I've said before, there's no shame in that.
Right.
There's no shame in
honor in trying.
There's honor. And dude, you had the guts to show up in the first place. So
damn, I love what he's just shared here. And this has just brought up a bunch of questions that have come up. I've stayed away from answering these questions with a specific Q&A, but I'll try to touch on this here. When he's talking about, I knew why. I thought I had an idea. As soon as he said legacy kids coming through, I instantly thought, oh, those are sons of a parent or their father who has served in the unit. To hear first that he's received phone calls, like he's been on the receiving end of a negative phone call, getting the blame because their child hasn't gotten through, that's poor form. The units, regardless of who's in charge, who's there, who the directing staff are, it comes back to one of the Q&As that I did in terms of clicks or personality clashes that can happen. I'd heard about those sort of things, but I've never physically witnessed it firsthand. See a badge member directing staff just have it in for a candidate and then just do everything to kick them off. Maybe it's happened. Maybe it happened in the past. Maybe it happens today. I've never witnessed it. The way selections are run, you get that many, and I've always spoken about this. I believe, in my take, it has always been fair and reasonable, and you get multiple eyes looking at all the candidates. It's not one directing staff member just looking at one candidate the whole time. You got multiple, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for. Not everybody in the unit gets on with each other. And you've heard people like Harry Moffat talk about it. I've mentioned it. Many, I would say, every SF operator would talk about it. You've heard Obi-Wan Nairobi, what's that? Christian Craighead talk about it. Like there's people that he didn't really think were good leaders, or words to that effect. That's normal in any organization, in any business. But it's same if any of my children decided that they wanted to go on selection and do selection because that's where they feel that they want to be, good on them. The interesting thing is, people have asked me, the children, some of your children in the army, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? I've said, I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do, because I was surprised and shocked that they even wanted to go to the army, because my wife and I have never encouraged it. But again, I've shared this in other videos, we've never discouraged it either. They need to paddle their own waka and steer themselves in the direction that they feel they want to go and do. And if they feel that they want to serve in the military, cool. If they feel they want to do selection, cool. Don't do it for me. Don't do it for mum. Don't do it for for anybody else other than themselves, if they were going to do it. So, if they go on it and if they fail, they fail. Like, nothing changes as far as me being their father and loving them, or their mother loving them and being proud of them. Like Brad Geary has said, there is massive honor and respect, and I've shared this in other videos as well, for people that just show up to the start line. First, to have the guts to fill out the application, submit it, and then next to actually turn up on the start line and have at it. Nothing but respect for those people. So disappointing that parents would call up this guy, the commanding officer, and take it out on him and or blame him. And yeah, disappointing if they're trying to wrap up their career and what they had and put that into their child. Like, that's a massive amount of pressure, I think, to put on a child, to put on anyone, let alone your own child. Let them do them, and let them grow and do whatever it is that they want. If they want to be a cook in the military, or wherever it is that they are, if they want to be a tradie, if they want to be a laborer, if they want to be a business owner, entrepreneur, or whatever, an artist, like, help your children and encourage them, identify their strengths, steer them, give them a bit of a steer if you think they're going off the rails a bit with regards to some of the stuff that they may be going on about. But for the most part, man, it's their life. Let them live it the way that they see fit for them and what they want to do, and support them in it. That's my two.
There's no shame in choosing a different walk of life. This isn't everything. And like we said, this doesn't make the man. But seeing some of these dads turn to me and be like, you must have run my kid out of the program. You didn't like me, so you ran them out, or you let things get out of control. That's why my son quit. It's like, no, dude, you remember going through this, 25, 30 years ago. It's hard. I'm sorry your son made a choice, but we have psychs that meet with these guys right after, peel apart that choice every time. It's clean. Hey, just wasn't for me. I was too young. I was too immature. Some of them come back through later, but either way, that was hard. That was hard because I lost some friendships over that one.
Well, Jocko's son went through while you were.
Yes, he did. And I wasn't going to bring that up because I know
it became a SEAL.
He's doing really well.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring that one up. You did. So, because I know Jocko, and this is what I love about Jocko. We become friends over the years. I didn't know him early on in my career, but he as a dad approached this in an incredible way. Just hands off. I'm not going to be a helicopter dad. At one point he came out and saw some training and he looked at me. He's like, dang man, this looks hard. He's like, this looks a little harder than I remember. And then he paused and he said, but there's things that are not happening that used to happen also that were way harder than what I'm seeing here too. And I said, exactly. And he said, I think it kind of balances out. I said, I think so too. So he had a very pragmatic approach as he looked at it. And he never put any pressure on us. And he said, hey, my son has got to make it on his own merits. And it's interesting because there's people that.
That's great. Because Jocko knows, like those that have been there, and any parent I would have expected, any person that served in an SF unit, and if their child is looking to apply to go through, has to get in on their own merits. You don't get in, you don't get whāngai in to a unit because your parent was in there, and whatever happens. So massive respect to those children whose parents were in the unit who then go through and make it through. Nothing but respect for them. And even those that don't, like those children that may attempt it and then go, yeah, no, it's not for me, and then withdraw or whatever, or they don't meet the requirements, like say they pass and for whatever reason, the CO or the panel, has to make a decision and say, not at this time, but you can come back and reapply, then, it is what it is. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens behind the scenes. It's not just about being able to still stand there physically at the end.
We'll say, oh, well, when a legacy kid comes through, the instructors will try to run them out or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, I'd always pay attention to that. I'd go out and watch. And specifically with Jocko's kid, I went out once and I was curious. And I'm waiting to see, they're coming running by the boats. And one of my instructors, unsolicited by me, I didn't even want to bring it up. He's like, hey, yo, sir, see that guy? He's one of my favorites. I said, oh, why? I'm just curious. He's like, well, he's not the fastest or the strongest, but he does his job, keeps his mouth shut, and he keeps his head under the boat. He does his job. I was like, that's pretty cool, man. I respect that. And so I texted Jocko that night, like, yo, if someone said this about my kid, I'd want to know.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, thanks. That makes me proud. Yeah. But I know he's very quiet about his son in the teams because I think he, understandably, he wants his son to have his own path. He doesn't want his dad's name to influence anything. And he's making his own way. And I respect that. I respect Jocko's position and I respect his kid for that a lot. Yeah. Not all dads were like that there.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. So he's also been, his daughter's like a phenomenal jiu-jitsu competitor. Yeah. So well, that's one thing about competition. Yeah. They have to, your dad's not out there with you. You have to do it in your own merit.
Jocko raised fighters. Yeah. And for the American public out there, he is everything he says he is. I mean, you see what you get with Jocko. There is no alter ego, different personality. That dude is all in all the time. He's incredible. So that was one of the other hard ones, but I was thankful that our relationship went well through that.
It's cool to hear him speak like that about Jocko. Like, I don't know him at all. He seems like what you see is what you get, is what Brad Geary just mentioned there. But I know that there's a number of people, and I've stayed away from this as well. There's been requests for me to look into some other stuff that people have said about Jocko, and I'm like, I just steer clear of that. He seems like an amazing individual to me, based on what little I know of him. Like I said, I don't know him personally, but the way he speaks, his ability to influence, and what he seemingly does, it's good to know that he's the same day in, day out, and that he's stayed hands-free and understands 100% as he should and as he would, having been through the process. His son needs to get through on his own merits, and anybody with children anybody that served in a unit who has children who then decide that they want to go there, in my opinion, who decide, if those children decide that they want to go there for anything other than for themselves and for what those units are about and for the person next to them, so they're having their own why, having their own reasons for that. If they don't have that, and if they're going for some other reason, or they think they're going for somebody else, including the parent or parents, then I don't think they're going to go very well. That's just my take.
And then the third one that was probably one of the more difficult ones to navigate, and it comes back to, you said earlier, it's funny, you called someone a kid, and then you said, well, not really a kid, an adult. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And what I mean is, it's amazing how many people create this perception that this is Boy Scout camp. Let me give you an example. And we do it to ourselves, internal, and everyone does it external. So internal, we had this false allegation against one of our instructors. We had just started the investigation. Turned out to be completely false, demonstrably, provably false. But one of my civilian employees, GS, comes storming in the office, furious, red-faced, yelling and screaming. Can you believe this crap? I can't believe that your instructors would do this to our students. This is unbelievable. These moms don't send their kids here to get treated this way. So keep in mind, now we know later all the allegations were false. He was jumping to conclusions. He was overreacting. He was speaking out of anger and frustration. And I said, hang on a minute. Stop what you got, dude. You're right. Mommies don't send their kids here to get treated this way, because this isn't Boy Scout camp. Mm-hmm. These are not young boys that come to this program. These are grown adults who make a choice to pursue one of the hardest jobs in the military and become a warfighter. So you're right. Mommies don't send their kids here. So that was already an internal problem.
Men make a choice to come
They
here.
make a choice. And by the way, they're grown men, mm-hmm. and they're Navy sailors, certified Navy sailors coming out of boot camp. We had that same problem with senators and congressmen who would come visit. They would come. This one female senator came, I think she was a senator, and she's watching our program, and she's asking, well, how does medical work, and how do these processes work? There's a lot of interest in our medical there. And it's clean, it's professional, it's actually world class. And so they actually had a medical emergency happen while she's there. Everything happens like clockwork. Boom, boom, boom. Ambulance comes, off he goes, good to go. She's like, wow, that's really impressive. What kind of changes have you made that got it to this level? We're like, we've been doing it this way for years, ma'am. That's the way we do business. Mm-hmm. And she's, wow, that's really impressive. We said, well, we know, but thank you.
And it's a testament. I know I've spoken about selection. It's great to hear that they have those processes on lock. And I saw that when I was doing the reaction to class of 234, which apparently Brad Geary was in. And he must be like Jocko Willock's son, just kept his mouth closed and just kept his head out of the boat, did what he was told, etc., etc. But anyway, I digress. Looking at that and seeing how, like you said, how clean, how efficient, how much care goes into looking out for the welfare of each student, especially when they're freezing cold and then they're in that water. And you saw videos of that where they're struggling to do simple math calculations, what day of the week it is, what their name is, etc. Running, taking BP, taking their blood pressure, and all that sort of stuff. They've got plenty of things in place, clearly through experience, but that preparation and anticipation of things that could go wrong, which is why they're at such a high level. Now, does that guarantee that people aren't going to pass away or be badly hurt? No, it doesn't. But they've got things in place. And so it's interesting when you're having, like you said, anybody that hasn't volunteered, has never experienced it, has no idea what's involved in that type of work from a physical perspective, just maybe from what they've seen in movies or what they think happens. They don't understand the hardships that you need to be able to endure and go through in order to earn a place in a unit like that. And that's a necessary part, because the work that you're asking those operators to go and do is not easy. It's not a place where you've got medical and police and first responders on tap to help out. Like, you've got highly skilled operators who've got a bunch of medical training and skills, yes, but you don't have the luxury of those environments or those resources, external resources, when you're in another country and deep behind enemy lines or on specific missions and tasks. So it's cool to hear him talking about this, and I can only imagine though how frustrating it must be at times to have to then repeat yourselves to other people that probably come in with the same questions and are very limited understanding of what goes on.
Then she said, okay, so at what point do you call his mother? And there was this awkward silence as all these SEALs looked around uncomfortably, like, And finally, the doctor spoke up. He had the moral courage to be like, hey, Senator, we don't. And, her jaw dropped. She looked shocked. He goes, that's a HIPAA violation because this is a grown man who signed on the dotted line and he takes this risk. If he wants to call his mother, he's more than welcome to call his mother. We don't prohibit that, but we are actually prohibited from calling anybody about a medical emergency like this by HIPAA. That's U.S. law. By the way, you're the legislative branch. If you guys don't like that, you can change it. But so again, there's this perception that like, oh, these poor little boys who come and suffer here, and these mommies out there are so worried. Hey, I'm sorry, man. No, not the case. We're adults. This is war fighting. It's ugly. It's brutal. It's scary. It's hard. And there's going to be things that go wrong. We should be unapologetic about who we are and what we do. And we should stop worrying about what mommies think out there.
Just on that, when he's saying we should be like, clearly they're not unapologetic. Like if something happens, I could, without knowing Brad Geary and without being involved in the units these days in terms of selection cycle or anything, really just talking to guys from time to time, very rarely these days, I can 100% guarantee they're going to be remorseful and condolences and all that sort of stuff. That's not what he means when he's saying we should be unapologetic with regards to that. If a tragedy happens or a fatality, obviously it's going to be very, very different. But what he's talking about there, if you can take it in the context of how I'm framing it anyway, in terms of the context and the way that he's speaking, like it's ugly, it's hard, it's brutal, etc. Those words that he used to describe it. Yeah, it's all of those things. And if you're sore or you injure yourself or you get a broken arm or broken leg or whatever, it's tough. It's unfortunate, but it's that aspect and those types of things. It's nothing for the regiment or the unit in this case to apologize for. It's just part of life. It's no different to when our kids have broken their arm when they jumped out of a tree, landed awkwardly and put the arm out and snapped, or kids running and their arms and their heads going through the glass, the boys cracking their head on the back of the concrete and having the scar, and it's just life. It's just part of those things, the growing pains, for want of a better term. But yeah, I like what he's
it just is it was unhealthy for our culture, and it creates unintended consequences when we allow that perception to persist. Those were tough to deal with.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Especially just even have to deal with it.
Oh, dude. And the time of your day is consumed talking to some mom, dad, or some leader out there who is coddling to these expectations. Yeah. Hey, you're not helping the problem right now.
Right.
And by the way, it's taking time out of my day where I'm now not focusing on training these candidates because I'm answering questions that this is U.S. law.
Yeah. Shouldn't even have to be dealing with
Shouldn't even have to talk about this.
So here's one that I wouldn't have asked you if you were still in, but now you're retired, I will.
All right, send it.
As the commander of Buds, how much pressure did you get to push through a female candidate?
It's a really, really good question. Here's what I'll say. DEI was absolutely starting to infiltrate the ranks of Naval Special Warfare, 100%. We had a DEI officer at Warcom. We had training events, where they said, hey, we need to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would always say I'm going to talk about equality of opportunity, not equity. Yeah. So I would kind of,
equality and equity are not the same thing.
Not the same thing. If you haven't researched the differences, Google them today, please. Big differences. So it was starting to infiltrate. Here's what I love. I was there at a unique place in time where we did have females coming through. In fact, during my command tour, we produced the first female SWIC warfighter ever. Mm-hmm. She is incredible. Impressed the hell out of me, and I made sure she earned it. We absolutely made sure she earned it. She did. She got no special favors. Yeah. We also had the first.
That's awesome. First female SWIC. I've forgotten what SWIC stands for. Special Warfare something. Sorry, somebody can correct me, or maybe I'll look it up later. But that's what a huge achievement for that female to go through. And no doubt, just listening to Brad Geary speak, no doubt she earned it the same as any other male that likely went through and made it to unit as well.
Female come into Hell Week ever. It's the first one to make it that far going into Hell Week. And what was so refreshing to me is even though you had DEI infiltrating, I could feel it. It was there. And we felt it from DC 100%. We were getting calls and pressure. Hey, just get one through. What does that mean? And even can you just give us one win? What do you mean? We have curriculum, we have criteria, we have standards.
Who are those idiots, man? Just get one through. Just give us one win. Idiots. People that have no idea what it's like to be involved in combat and just don't understand what is required and what's necessary. Dumbass.
If they meet the standard, fantastic.
Yeah, right.
No problems. If they don't meet the standard, no, I'm not going to get one through, for your political agenda. So I was very fortunate that my bosses at the time 100% were aligned with you hold the standard. You hold the standard. In fact, it was great. The female quit the first day after Hell Week. She was phenomenal, but her body was just broken. Like it just destroyed her. Destroyed her.
What an achievement, though. What a testament to that female. Like I think you said, first female ever to make it to Hell Week. There would have been, I have no doubt there would have been a bunch of males that would have quit and that must have quit well before getting to Hell Week. And for her to make it that far, even though she withdrew on day one of Hell Week, I think is what he said. Massive respect, man, for her to get that far. Just goes to show. I think it's probably possibly a matter of time, whether I agree with it or not. Like I don't think females should be. I would prefer females weren't, and I don't think females should be in that SF space. But hey, if that's what they want to do, more power to them. Maybe that time will come for them to make it into the SEALs or into an SAS unit or whatever. But yeah, my take is I still would prefer that they weren't. But if they want to put up their hand and they want to keep going for it and trying, nothing but respect for them. Anyway, man, this is over 30 minutes. I'm going to wrap this one up here. We'll come back to this on the next time I do a reaction. But this is a juicy part of the conversation, actually. But we'll pause this here, and then I've got a few other things to do and work-wise today. So if you made it this far, thank you very much for your time, mate. Appreciate you once again, as always. And with that, as always, the message is the same. Regardless of your challenges, difficulties, trials, man, I just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight. Like just take one day at a time, put one foot in front of the other. Know that the sun will shine again and that better days are ahead. So, appreciate you all. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave that comes from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.